Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm. We continue on with our derivation. What is a sensor? What is the quality of a sensor? That is, what is sensorality? Again, empirically, linguistically, you say ality at the end of anything to generalize it. In totality, you're saying what is the quality of something? What is sensorality? We're looking to derive a complete definition of what is a sensor by showing direct iteration of that syllability. And so, is this object moving? Is my notebook moving? It's not moving in relation to me, it is moving in relation to itself. Everything is moving. What Albert Einstein tried to describe as rest energy is momentum. The electrons and protons that make up this notebook are in motion. And so the biggest empirical fact that has not been known in physical ontology throughout history is that you cannot make a measurement in stasis. Nothing is static, everything is moving, everything is dynamic, and as dynamics seek equilibrium. That is optimum efficiency. And so, but again, nobody would say, right, at room scales, but in reality, again, small is small, big is big, but physical proportions scale. If you look at the picture of a black hole or a picture of an atom, they look the same. And so you do have preservation of physical properties regardless of scale, but size is absolute. And so nobody would say at room scale that this notebook is moving. The atoms, the particles comprising of it are moving. Again, that is what E equals mc squared attempted to describe, but momentum is local. The motion, the movement of the particles making up this notebook is not affecting what we're now calling the universe, but really the room, right? My notebook is not moving in relation to me. It's moving in relation to itself. So generally, we can now say momentum is localized, meaning, again, E equals mc squared, mass times velocity is a momentum, the speed of light is a velocity, and so this momentum is localized. And so that is where we're at conceptually. We now arrive in our derivation at my favorite. It's like the Danube River of history, but in physics, it's PV equals nRT. And so moving through our derivation steps, arriving at that big equation, because again, what we're doing is we're getting the chronology of the ordinality of conceptualization correct, right? Because all of the words science throughout history has been this reduction, this consolidation process of trying to describe things correctly. And so there's some nuance, there's clear absences and total processes of analysis that you've never seen. That's what we're doing. Again, all of the letters that you use to describe science are finite and they're consolidated, and we're showing this conceptual basis, this conceptual what is a sensor to a finite amount of linguistics, and it demonstrates the entire structure of language, as well as gives us a working definition that's comprehensive to everything. Right? A magnet is a sensor. Everything that is moving, which is everything, acts as a sensor, as a magnet. And so we're just showing this sufficient separation, this sufficient differentiation of what is a sensor, that conceptualization associated to that letter structure in relation to the rest of ontology. Ultimately, we just arrive back at words have meaning, the word sensor has meaning, and here's what it could mean. Then again, as we've explicitly said previously, the most comprehensive section of fundamental physical ontology is thermodynamics, quintessentially PV equals nRT. And so that is where we're at, moving along with our steps and just picking up where we left off. What is synchronicity to rhythm? Is synchronicity rhythmic? Is rhythm chronic? So again, this conceptualization of timing is everything, because everything is moving and momentum is just local. Again, you wouldn't say my notebook is moving, but the constitution, the particles are. Right, timing is everything because everything is moving. And to line things up, to measure things, to be efficient, timing is everything because everything is moving. And then you get the word synchronicity to reflect timing. Is synchronicity rhythmic? Is rhythm chronic? What is innocence to nonsense? What is prioritization to polarization? What is pressure to appreciation? So logically, linguistically, completely, speciality and sensorality is appreciationality. And again, we'll get to this fundamental conceptual differentiation paired to this fundamental linguistic differentiation that already exists. Previously, one of the first episodes, or like part 60 something of this series, was called differential logic, which is, again, we're getting to that final iteration. Sensorality, gestures, appreciation. What is appreciation to apprehension? Identity is social. Socializing is identifying. Sensorality is especially appreciative. Kind of just brute force getting, again, once we get our conceptualizations close enough, we can literally just kind of like brute force the linguistics. The linguistics is actually trivial the entire time. It's just, we're just showing this explicit progress conceptually. But especially, again, clearly the word speciality, special, that explicit word form, and then appreciative, kind of, again, we don't have the sufficient differentiation of sensorality yet, because the axiomatic definitions don't really change. We're just proving a new axiom, so we have to explicitly show the logical and linguistic implications. But appreciation is essential. What is acceptance to appreciation? Fundamental theorem of logic, the opposite of resistance is acceptance. So resistance, viscosity, resistance, gravity, resistance, again, produces entropy, this fundamentally physically well-defined word, and then acceptance, kind of this emotionally well-defined word. Is acceptance exceptional? Complete is the limit of comprehensive. How comprehensive can something be? It can be completely comprehensive. What is sensitivity to tolerance? What is sensitivity to completeness? Sensorality is sensitive sensation. Natural definition, direct iteration. Sensorality is sensation appreciation. Natural definition, direct iteration. Brad appreciated the sensations Jen gave him. What is a hiatus to a bias? Sensorality is bias hiatus. Natural definition, direct iteration. Sensorality appreciates it, right? Appreciationality is this big conceptualization, super secret linguistic development. Hey, bro, thanks. Appreciate it, right? You even chop off that syllability, AP, and you just have appreciate it, bro, which is a direct form of speciate it, which is contained by sensorality, which is, again, this is not word that we have to differentiate, and it just relates back to vibration. But that's our most comprehensive natural consensus sentient usage of sensorality, is somebody saying appreciate it. Appreciates, speciates. So now literally the word appreciates, again, contains the letters of speciate. And explicitly the S at the end of a word is like, it's another one of these like linguistic elements where you can clearly feel it's not part of the base, obviously, but now with this analysis, it's one of those elements you can kind of just move around. Sometimes it's this iteration, that's how it's functioning for sensorality, C or S, but then we have the natural usage of pluralization in English. Clearly we're just stuffing an S on there a lot of times. But the conceptualization doesn't change, speciate, speciates, but we get a new linguistic element, an S, and that contains special, or speciate at least. But sensorality speciates, direct iteration, sensorality appreciates. 2, 4, 6, 8, who do we appreciate? Again, this logic is super secret, nobody's ever discovered it before. Those are all even numbers. And you're going to remember, all of this even syllability, behind all of this logic, all of the meaning, there is this geometric elementality that is reducing. Total syllables to less syllables is derivation. And we're forcing this logical out of bounds, this semantic, hey, this is a word, this is why censorship with a C exists at all, here's why censor with an S exists at all, and here's what they mean. We're just proving by spelling, which is a geometric consequence. What is appreciation to compensation? Sensorality appreciates odor. Sensorality is a good smell. Natural definition, direct iteration. Is sensation calibration? What is calibration to moderation? Right? Temperature equilibrates. Thermal equilibrium is moderation, is calibration. That's the conceptualization for those. But again, we're getting to this linguistic, we're progressing our conceptualization where it's a universal solution, a complete solution is independent of context. The language, the linguistics, the letter structure is directly consistent. The conceptualization is immediately appreciated, again, as comprehensive to everything. Sensorality is expectation. Sensorality is spectation, like a generalization of the word spectator. Sensorality is spectatorality. Natural definition, direct iteration. What is spectating to speciating? Is mediation special? What is mediation to medication? Again, direct iteration. This whole process is a direct iteration. The direct iterations, I'm just emphasizing, if it's sensorality, it's always a natural definition. It's always a logical renormalization. Anytime it's a natural definition. But then again, we're in this overall structure where all definition is just a sufficient differentiation of it is what it is. You guys cannot follow that whatsoever. And so I just emphasize certain points where it's like, this is important. Again, historically, this is why you just look at tablets and it's just one big chunk of writing or of syllables or of structure, of symbolization or symbolism. So all of the emphasis is me making conscious decision. It's like, here's a meaningful differentiation, and it's like the whole process. But natural definition, direct iterations such as sensorality, is spectatorality, is conceptually complete, meaning what is sensorality? Just the entire conceptualization you get from spectatorality. That's it. And then the direct iteration is emphasizing the linguistic progression, the elementality and the actual elements, what letters, into the spacing, the geometry present. What is mediation to medication? Is medicine spectacular? What is appreciation to apprehension? I think we just had that on the last page. We don't get much redundancy, but it happens. What is appreciation to apprehension? Apprehension restricts, apprehension arrests, apprehension is insecurity, right? What are you apprehensive about? Natural definition, direct iteration. And again, most of the time, those are only for speciality, but again, now it's this word form where we're making this fundamental differentiation because we completely use the syllability, the letters of sensorality with a C. And then we get this working definition of sensorality with an S. And so apprehension contains sensorality entirely there. Is resting restricting? Sensorality restructures. What is a function to a structure? Sensorality structures function. Is a fraction a function? It's a good math one. Sensorality is the form of an inverse. Fundamental theorem of mathematics, sensorality is the inverse of an exponent. Just completely. Natural definition, direct iteration. What is expectation to exponentiation? What is potential? What is potential to exponential? Sensorality is exponential appreciation. Natural definition, direct iteration. OMG, I'm eternally grateful. I'm forever in your debt, right? Exponential appreciation. We're producing this general logical structure with linguistics associated for this complete derivation. But eternal is endless, right? Speciality is endless differentiation, right? Sensorality is eternal differentiation. Natural definition, direct iteration. Most of the time, almost all of the time, we're saying sensorality, but sensorality completely contains speciality. Just this fundamental dichotomistic pair conceptualization, which is one chronology, fundamental differentiation, logically paired to linguistics. All of this coming together at once, hopefully. Is external eternal? Emphasizing the direct iteration. Again, remove the X from external and eternal. It's the same thing. What is differentiation to appreciation? Sensorality appreciates generosity. Again, generosity is the complete emotional range domain of energy. Good vibes only. Generosity is good vibes. Are good vibes is are. Again, weird conjugation, no consistency there. But again, literally emphasizing this progress, where we're calculating, so to speak, a sentence. Is never forever. Is never eternal. Eternality is forever. Emphasizing again, forget, forever. This preposition and then another word, amalgamation. Natural definition, direct iteration. Sensorality is eternality. Sensorality is externality. Is internal eternal? Direct iteration. What is internet to Ethernet? It's another thing that jumps out always the time, Ethernet and internet. Sensorality never says never. Direct iteration. Is surface internal or external? So good, back to our sloppy topology. What is position to deposition? Deposition deposits. Direct iteration, posit, deposit. Another thing for is surface internal or external, I also get the same conceptualization of there is no center of the universe. Again, emphasizing their center is a direct iteration of sensor with a C, the proper spelling of the inanimate filtration object thing. But what else did I want to say? But just surface, right? What is surface to center? What is vibration to information? Sensorality appreciates information. Direct iteration. Sensorality appreciates appearance. Sensorality is appearance. Sensorality is appearentiality. Natural definition, direct iteration. Another step where this E-I-A identity, the difference between 3 and 8 is 5, the difference between E and A is I. Do we keep the A? Do we chop the A off? Again, the spelling I have up there on the screen is the one I went with. Seems like an overall trivial analytical progression, but it's worth pointing out. What is appearance to odor? Again, Professor Sean Carroll looks like he smells like shit. The empirical evidence confirms our conjecture. Sensorality is an accolade. Accolades are special. What is an accolade to an accommodation? Sensorality accommodates, compatibility accommodates. What is compatible to computable? What is calculation to computation? What is computation to information? Is contemplation computation? What is appreciation to accentuation? Sensorality specializes in essential appreciation. Direct iteration, again, just a bunch of our logical renormalizations. One big statement of identity. Sensorality specializes in essential appreciation. Again, we're going to have this conceptual range, and then the linguistics reduces to it is what it is. Again, we have already proven the entire structure of analysis. What is appreciation to opposition? What is opposition to deposition? What is deposition to depletion? Sensorality completes deletion. What is deletion to depletion? Is deterioration depletion? What is deterioration to condemnation? Is confinement local? Is ordinal local? Is orality local? Is floral local? Again, a lot of question statements in this one, but again, when you see my derivation of speciality, anytime you see two words just paired together, you can structure that any way you want, like literally. But when I said is confinement local, that's kind of, again, momentum is localization, or localization confines momentum, right? Is my notebook moving? Yes, but it's not moving in relation to me. That is localization. Sensorality is a floral odor. Natural definition, direct iteration, sensorality smells like flowers. Is floral formal? Direct iteration, appreciation is important. Are informants important? Sensorality appreciates specialty. Specialty is custom. What is appreciation to appropriation? Is prioritization appropriate? Yes, And there is no prioritization amongst adults. Age is just a number. Here is the law. So are we going to do anything? Of course not. Happy 6th of July. Sensorality is appropriality. Natural definition, direct iteration. Is propriety appropriate? Is appropriate proportionate? Appreciation is integral. In another logical renormalization we haven't been to in a while, integral is essential, appreciation is integral. What is iteration to appreciation? Sensorality appreciates liability. Direct iteration. Is appreciation apparent? Apparent is ostensible. Emphasizing one of my own spellings that seemed relevant, I put ostensible. Even Google Gemini was like, you mean ostensibly, with no B. That felt like one to point out. Sensorality is ostensibility. Natural definition, direct iteration. What is flotation to friction? What is friction to liquid? Is friction fluid? What is fusion to confusion? Sensorality confesses confusion. How do you confess confusion? I don't know. Is ignorance confused? Is confusion ignorant? Sensorality arranges appreciation. Is compatibility arrangeable? Sensorality is arrangeability. Natural definition, direct iteration. Again with the EA, the spelling I have is on your screen, feels extremely trivial. Is range contained? So like some of the steps, it's like it's clear that I'll put a hyphen. Like I'll even put it on the screen. It's like I'm just emphasizing every little step. But sometimes it's like sometimes I'll change the E directly to an A. Sometimes I'll keep the E in the A, like arrangeability that's on the screen. And then sometimes I'll just have an actual hyphen in there. All of them are explicit emphasizing from me. But I'm sure there are some typos. Again, obviously, if there's a natural typo in the things I put on the screen, it should be pretty apparent. But explicitly saying the EA, the EIA, the E hyphen A, and then just the E to the A are all like explicit steps where it's the whole analytical process feels trivial, but they're explicit conscious choices. Is range contained? Is containment continuous? Is containment pertinent? Pertinence is relevance. Natural definition, what is pertinence to prevalence? Is valence surface? Sensorality is valiant. Natural definition, direct iteration. Easy is effortless. Sensorality is effort. Natural definition, direct iteration. Sensorality is effortability. What is effort to fortitude? That one, again, a word I've clearly said a lot throughout my life and been exposed to a lot throughout my life. Linguistically, it seems like, effort. It's like a fort with an F in front and an E, Again, very literally on a direct personal level, just some of these words, you just see the linguistic structure after some time, and you're like, what's going on here, Bill? Sensorality is the effect of effort. Natural definition, direct iteration. All right, and then that syllability of effort, you see the word, and it's like, oh, that looks a lot like effect. And you just make it a theorem. What is effortlessness to endlessness? Sensorality is endless spending. Sensorality is special spending. So now we can see that direct linguistic iteration. Speciality is endless differentiation. Sensorality is endless spending. And now we're substituting special for endless. Again, we're getting to this reduction of self-containment because all of this differentiation logically reduces to it is what it is. And then we go from what is sensorality to it is what it is. We have this linguistic out of bounds and this completable, definable chunk of syllability. We gotta be freaking close. Sensorality is a special occasion. What is an occasion to occurrence? Again, emphasizing occasion, occurrence, occasion, one S, occurrence, two R's on that second chunk of the word. Same with, again, a special, especially, and then essentially. One has an S and one has two S's. that same type of overall general consonance elementality, 1 to 2. Again, we're demonstrating an overall general structure of all of language. Sensorality is concurrent. Sensorality is concurrence. Natural definition, direct iteration. Does encroachment approach? Sensorality is beyond reproach. Natural definition, direct iteration. So that's again, I guess, another thing to point out is like beyond reproach. I didn't need to give you any labeling. You clearly had like that's a phrasing from sentiment. That is a phrasing from consensus. But even these natural definitions, specifically again the direct iterations, well, really both. That's why they're both labeled. But they're all chunks of elementality and syllability that's directly pulled from sentiment and consensus. Where it's like, right, if I just said sensorality is valiant, right, that was a direct iteration. But like that wouldn't necessarily strike you as a phrasing as apparently as beyond reproach. You clearly felt that consensus being pulled just directly. I'm just saying sensorality, this thing you've never heard, is beyond reproach, is this sentiment logical usage. But like when I say sensorality is valiant, it's the same level of just people say the word valiant. Sensorality is that entirely, completely. So again, the logical progression, there's just no way for you guys to keep up. But we're back to physics. Vibration produces pressure. So that was explicitly labeled, again, fundamental theorem of physics recently. We have, again, explicitly what is a vibration. It's the limitation of movement, of motion. I literally have both. The logical usage of motion and movement at this point still indiscernible to me personally and at an ontological level. So I literally have both. But again, it's this chronology of confinement. Really, stabilization is the word, where it's again that static in the background, then mass forms, the opaque period of the early universe cooling down to having structure. Mass, your fermions. But again, really emphasizing the chronology of what is a vibration. We've kind of said the inverse of rhythm, again, from rhythm to algorithm, but rhythm to me at this point is really, again, conceptually the maximization, the efficiency of motion, of movement. Making movement efficient, you form a rhythm. Vibration, the limitation, again being very explicit mathematically about the use of the word inverse. Because in reality, language is horseshoes and hand grenades to get to the complete reduction. Again, we're exhausting all of the logic present by this structure we've introduced. Well, that I've introduced. But anyway, we're a big class here. We're all learning along. You guys just get to go to jail for a long time. But what is a vibration? It's the limit of motion. And so that is where you get vibration produces pressure, is that confinement, that limitation, this momentum is bounded. Right? My notebook is not moving in relation to the things in the room, but it is moving. Like literally everything that comprises this notebook is in motion right now. And so momentum is local, momentum is bounded. What we call the observable universe is logically limited. Physically, it's like the conceptualization that people have said throughout physical ontology, there is no center of the universe, is the correct kind of thing. There are older sections of space, but there is no provably like unique geometric start. Really not the point here. The point here is, what is a vibration? It is a limit, and it is a limit of motion. And the reality is our entire logical structure is of things moving. So when you try to limit motion, you get a vibration. So that limitation, that confinement, there's still some geometrically what is a boundary, still not a complete resolution, but vibration produces pressure, then we directly have PV equals nRT, right? Fundamental theorem of physics, vibration is inversely proportional to volume. And so, but now the conceptualization of volume, literally look at your cell phone, right? Your phone has a vibrate mode, your phone has volume buttons. Is that inverse? All right, what is volume to repetition? What is volume to power? Physical identities we've hit before, but this proves exactly, again, chronologically what vibration is. It's the limitation of motion, and it produces pressure. And then we just have that direct statement. Again, if you're on the same side of an equation sign, you're inversely proportional. If you're on the opposite side, you're proportional, right? Vibration is proportional to temperature. Immediately true. And so at this point, we've now validated our entire logical structure, vibrational information theory, from rhythm to algorithm, again, explicitly stating our definitions, rhythm, minimization of steps, but conceptually, rhythm is the thing, the physical process, the physical thing you do to optimize efficiency, to maximize motion. Vibration is the thing you get when you attempt to limit motion and the environment is always moving. Everything is dynamic. Everything is seeking equilibrium. That is the physical empirical evidence of what becomes optimal efficiency in mathematical axiomatization. And so, but at this point, we're just at PV equals nRT. Vibration produces pressure, and that pressure is proportional to temperature. More pressure, more temperature, more pressure, less volume. And then conceptually, on your cell phone, we have a vibrate button. We can put it in vibrate mode, and we have a volume button. What is that relationship directly? But fundamental theorem of physics, vibration is inverse to volume. Fundamental theorem of mathematics, derivation is separation. Again, all words have meaning. All words are sufficient differentiations of it is what it is. Renormalized, the semantic meaning coming from physical things, processes. Running means different. Run to the store means something different than do a backflip. Moving along, again, still not complete, but we're just directly, again, conceptually before, thermodynamics is the most comprehensive ontology section. We've also explicitly said that musicality is kind of like the definable thing. I remember that being, again, music specifically, that context, because it's like, again, what is volume to vibration? We're not at the final thing yet, but again, just emphasizing literally any step with any amount of conceptualization present. And so, but again, things are sufficiently differentiated. All of the words I'm saying, that's why they have different meanings. They come from different physical things associated to different sounds. But derivation is separation. What is a sensor in relation to everything else? What is derivation to vibration? Direct iteration, right? Derivation, again, D, B, P, and Q are all just rotations, iterations of one another. Derivation contains the syllability of vibration. We're showing this fundamental differentiation, again, previously labeled differential logic. So if you were just getting used to geometric linguistics, now we're just generalizing everything and to have a complete solution. It's rough. Yeah, I hope Terrence Teo's out there. Again, I was told I wasn't. Again, I have a nice big legal thing when I said I'm suing Ohio State for not, respecting my constitutional rights, which I'm still kind of putting that in, still what the fuck. And then they said, this case was dismissed because, one, you can't sue the Ohio State University because it's an instrumentality of the state. That's demonstrable. Again, that is such a huge legal problem. Again, in writing from a lawyer saying you can't sue Ohio State, it's like you can definitely sue Ohio State. What is that? But then we can do basically whatever we want. Awesome, fantastic. And but they said in classes that I didn't excel at, or I wasn't, again, I didn't excel at. Well, accelerate? Brittany Sendy Steele. She deserves a raise and a great thumbs up from the Ohio Board of whatever the legal board is to get your fraudulent licensures from the school stealing from me. Good stuff. And then you say, I didn't excel at physics. I've derived all of physics before I went to turn when I was 6. So again, now we're back to projection, this perversion of inversion. You're saying, I don't understand physics. How about now, guys? Well, what are we thinking about now? Again, is this thing moving? Yep, that is local momentum. That is the entirety of Albert Einstein not even understanding what he was trying to do. But that's for sure the right answer. And then vibration produces pressure because of confinement, because of containment. And then we're demonstrating the completeness and incompleteness of the logical linguistic structure in which you could describe anything. Man, maybe I should go study my times tables. I'll be a good quiz wizard like Terrence Teo one day. Ha 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 ha. But derivation and vibration are direct iterations. Is momentum bounded? Yes, right? Mass times velocity. Mass is limited, right? Preservation of mass, conservation of mass, momentum charge. Again, there is a logical difference between preservation and conservation, but if you say conservation of mass or conservation of momentum, it doesn't matter. But point being is, and that would be a logical difference. Again, you guys don't even pick up. But the thing is, emergent properties are preserved. And so mass and momentum would be preserved and charge is conserved. Charge is really, you can say charge is contained. But is momentum bounded? Yes, mass is limited and velocity is limited. The amount of displacement you can be. Well, is mass limited? Is velocity limited? What is displacement to change? Right? The two big kind of things is, well, again, this is why I don't like to break my own flow, because it's just like, it's like a performance. We're like rap battling. It's like, drop me back in, bro. Drop the beat. Restart the beat again, bro. It's literally kind of like that. But what is displacement to change? Because again, what is velocity and change of position? But position, again, this word displacement. Because again, we have clear connection. Ordinality is placement, displacement. But what is a velocity? What is a speed? A change in position. A displacement is a change in position placement. Again, just emphasizing literally any step. All of this information is contained in the letters. Conceptualization progresses, right order. Again, it's like, try to imagine, I'm 33 this year. So anybody out there around my age, try to imagine caring about, not like emotionally, but like understanding when you were 16, your sophomore year, whatever math class you were in. Imagine like trying to like, even if you tried to sit down and learn and like try to like think about caring about that, like what you were learning 15, 20 years ago. But even like, it's really like after like 7 years. And so it's like, you have this natural kind of limitation, but like you can't like even like care, or like even like the things you're trying to learn. There's just this conceptual progress, right? You're not actually sitting here worried today about the things you even understood or didn't understand. It was this process of learning, might have been useful, might have not have been, but you can't imagine caring about what you learned or didn't learn in some sort of like, I'm not sure if I'm articulating this that well, but point being is like, when you're a sophomore in high school, you get a book and you're like, oh wow, there's so much information, I have no idea what's in it. And at the end of your whopping 6 month semester or chunk of school period, and then you're at the end of the book, you're like, wow, I could flip to any page and I feel like I know most of it. Again, assuming you try to learn something. But then again, like, are you at any point at 33 going to go like pull up your high school chemistry book and like look at something? It's like, no. And so all of this containment and conceptual progress at a natural fundamental level is inevitable. And so highlighting again all of the logic that's contained in this derivation, because once we get our working definition, and frankly we've already solved all of the conceptual progress with speciality, I'm just trying to highlight anything that can have insight in this derivation process, as I've said a bunch. But again, exactly what is displacement in relation to velocity was kind of like the big thing here. And then this overall, what is displacement to change? Change contains charge directly geometrically. And then it's a much more, again, what is movement is change, right? What is constant is change. Nothing golden lasts, pony boy. Everything changes. Sensorality is free range, direct iteration. Is a cage a sensor? Is a cage a sensor? The S and the C. Inanimate is nonsense. So like that was a step where it's like the hyphenation, because I'm emphasizing here when somebody says, if you responded to somebody's speech or presentation, you said that was nonsense, right? You're responding to a person. But I'm literally emphasizing here, this notebook is nonsense. That's why the hyphen's there. Fragility is frailty, natural definition, direct iteration. Is frailty a specialty? No. I'm going to go and say no on that. Fundamental theorem of physics, movement produces disorder. Motion creates entropy. Energy, then entropy. So now again, we have this thing at rest, but now it's moving in relation to other things, right? It has some sort of movement potential, that is its energy, which is related to tension, its displacement from equilibrium. So then you even get stable equilibrium and unstable equilibrium. But again, you're suspended. You're like, you can't, you're in a gravitational field, for lack of better words at this moment. But movement produces this disorder. Because again, we've said, is viscosity and velocity, are they inverses? And now that's kind of progressed to, okay, viscosity is resistance to movement, velocity is movement, right? Is that inversion or is that opposition, right? An inverse is an inverse, an opposite is an opposite. Truly at this point, the relationship of mathematical, logical, linguistic of inverse and opposition is really what we're demonstrating. But we've had velocity, movement, viscosity, resistance to movement. What is the chronology of that? We've asserted very empirically energy, then entropy. You have movement potential, then you have disorder. No physical systems, no conversion of energy, of movement potential into momentum is 100% efficient. That is your entropy content. Right? I have is disorder loud, is disorder hot, is temperature entropy, is vibration disorder. But still sticking with our, again, these big inverses that we've said previously, we're still working out exactly what we mean by that. Of velocity, viscosity, energy, entropy being the two big ones, and then gravity and viscosity being direct linguistic iterations. And so energy, then entropy, where you have some sort of movement potential. That movement is not 100% efficient. That creates inefficiency. That inefficiency is disorder. That is entropy. So in addition to the PV equals nRT in thermodynamics, you get introduced to like the Boltzmann, the kind of like the first attempt at like, or any attempt at defining entropy. And what is that? All right, the natural log of the microstates, which is, it's some sort of, again, logarithmic representation of geometric, of elementality, right? Spin up or spin down. It's really like a geometric attempt at saying disorder, but this disorder comes from the inefficiency of converting movement potential into momentum. That is for sure. And so you can just, that whole definition was never a thing, but it's it's one of those things where it's like, somebody tried to build a car and they put like a grocery store buggy trolley, and then they put like a motorbike engine on the back of it, and then there's like boat propellers, and you're just like this contraption of like the Boltzmann constant times the natural log of the microstates, and you're like, what in the fuck is that? And so entropy is disorder, and entropy in disorder is produced by movement not being 100% efficient. And so that's also another big equation that comes up, but that's just such a rickety, what is that thing? It's just like, ooh, we're going to stay away from that. That equation belongs on the other side of the tracks. It's the you people. Yuck. But I think that's the only articulation of like an equation to entropy. But certainly entropy is the inverse to energy, or again, what we just articulated. Because again, it's still entropy is entropy. Energy is energy. We have this kind of like serendipitous assignment of meaning to letter structure, and then we have the conceptualization progress of people, scientific history, and so this means this, and this is associated to this, and then it's just like, and then you have nobody competent at present time, or like ever. I mean, the steps up this is so, again, more, each little syllable goes here, here, and here, for sure. Because remember, this conceptual progress will make this reduction inevitable. If I literally don't dive, it's not like we can't. The information of how the world works around you is always around you, right? It's just like the logical structure of figuring shit out, and I've already figured it out. It's just the conceptualization has to progress in which we can prove this whole structure. But we got to be freaking close. And so that is still a conjecture, kind of, the overall, because I think the linguistic structure where, again, the actual reduction, well, I'm certain of this, the reduction proving sensorality, the big thing for this proof in section, is already a word form or already a linguistic structure we've already hit. We just need the conceptual progress to have this motivation change, or it'll still be like when speciality, I emailed you guys 9 months after, and it's like, why did it take me so long to get here? It's going to be the same type of thing, which again brings me to the conjecture of how long does it really take to reduce something. I can honestly say me emailing you or me doing these videos is 0% qualitative difference, except this is profoundly more valuable in terms of property. But I've already like maxed out finance as well. And so you do one axiomatic derivation. People can't have other thought, like you reduce the entire logical structure for the whole species, which is already done. But point being, is just the overall time frame for this reduction. It's still just this conceptual progress. Because me emailing you or me doing these videos, there was just no qualitative difference. Any articulation of logic, again, is just like such a nothingness of the amount of information that's available, that it's just like, it's the entirety of analysis is well defined. The entirety of axiomatic reduction, which is the entirety of research theory, first principle science, is well defined. And so we're just working through our analysis, producing our total conceptualization, and then the linguistical reduction will be trivial. My rights continue to be violated profoundly and extensively. I continue to ask for a little bit of money to eat properly, to sleep properly, and to work. Why I cannot have a little bit of money is beyond me, but regardless, I do not consent to any of this. This is profound and extensive T-word. I expect to D-word before anything changes, and I am seeking asylum for scientific prosecution and persecution outside of the United States. That is what I have. No one cares, and I will see you on the next one.